Hey there, my name is Cameron. Welcome to Beyond the Parallax Effect. This is Lesson 9. In this lesson, displacement mapping is used to create the parallax effect. So let's dive in and get started. Begin in Photoshop. Create a new layer above the image. Fill this layer with black. And drop the opacity of the layer to around 70%. Select the paintbrush tool with its color set to white. Most importantly, drop the opacity of the brush to 20% from the default of 100%. Paint over the man with the brush, leaving the background black. It's okay for the brush to overlap the man onto the background. This brush is set to a hardness of 50%. Paint a second layer of semi-transparent white over the existing painted white. This time, paint over areas of the image that are closer to camera. The idea is to make parts of the image closest to camera the brightest, and parts of the image furthest away from camera will be the darkest. In this case, the man's nose will be brightest. It's important to not let go of the brush until each layer of white is painted. Otherwise, overlapping areas of white will appear and offset the effect. Once finished painting, turn the opacity of the layer back to 100% and save. Import the Photoshop file as a composition. Make the layers 3D and enable motion blur. Pre-compose the depth layer. Turn off the visibility in the composite. Open up the pre-comp, and to the depth painting, apply Gaussian blur. Crank up the Gaussian blur effect until the image has very soft edges. Back in the composite, apply the Displacement Map effect to the image layer. This effect can be found under Effect, Distort, Displacement Map. Set the Displacement Map layer to the Depth Painting pre-comp. Change the red and green values to luminance. Increasing the horizontal and vertical displacements will create the parallax effect. Setting these numbers too high will create unrealistic results, but just enough will create amazing results. Set a keyframe at the beginning and ending of the timeline, and offset the values for each. Parent the depth pre-comp to the image file. Set a keyframe at both ends of the timeline for the Y rotation. The y-axis only needs to rotate about 5 degrees either way to help exaggerate the displacement effect. Drag the composite comp into a new HD comp. Scale down by 50% and set a keyframe. At the end of the timeline, scaling up by about 2% will create the effect of a slight zoom with a virtual camera. The composition layer is repositioned to fit better. A mask is added to soften the edges of the image and to push the edges further into the dark background. Position the mask and feather. A black solid is laid over the composite layer to create more of a vignette on the man. Place an oval mask on the solid and set to subtract. Feather the edges to soften. Create a new adjustment layer and add the levels effect. This effect will create darker blacks and add more contrast to the gray values. Adjust the left and middle sliders to achieve similar results. Select the puppet pen tool and place pins like so. Secondary motion will be added to the mouth and eyes to give the photo a little more life. The puppet pen technique is very subtle here, but subtleties always help. Drop the letterbox file over top to finish up the comp. As an optional last step, create one last adjustment layer and apply the chromatic aberration effect. Flatten the image a bit and set the lens texture to none. I've been really into this effect for the Parallax series. It adds a nice final touch. This wraps up Lesson 9 and the first of 2 lessons on the displacement parallax technique. I hope you learned something new. Leave your comments below and let me know what you think of this lesson. In the next lesson, we will be taking a look at a second parallax scene that is a little more involved.